case in point. In India right now, farmers were sort of sold, the bill of goods, like, wow, you're going to make so much money if you use this technology, sign here on the dotted line. So they did. But what happens was that when it didn't go their way, they didn't have seeds for the next year, and then they didn't have the money to pay back their debt. Neither did they have more money to buy the new seeds. And you know what they do? And I'm not talking hundreds, I'm talking thousands upon thousands are drinking poison to suicide because they can't get away. They can't ever get out of that debt hole. So it's really not helping small farmers. And if you look at it, farming around the world it relies on millions of small farmers in very small, diverse plots, not large plains like we have here in Canada. GMO farming isn't even suited to a lot of countries. That's why they're doing it here. Because if they want to feed the world, why on earth are they doing it in North America? We may be malnourished, but we are not impoverished as far as food supply goes. So basically, it's to set the tone here. Right now, Canadians and North Americans know little or nothing about GMOs, so they're taking advantage of our ignorance. And the problem is that going over time, they only have 5 crops modified to date that are authorized. 2 more are en route. One is alfalfa. Wheat is getting very close. And you've all heard about the genetically modified apple that I told you about. That's another close one. But after that, they've got about 30,000 patents. So if you're growing anything from cucumbers to zucchinis to you name it, they have a patent for it already. So these crops they've changed, it's irreversible. We can never go back to having those crops non-GMO. But what we can do is get enough public awareness going that we don't allow them to continue to modify everything. Because there's no going back. This is not like a defective Toyota that you recall. Once it's in the environment, it's out there forever. And I'd like to contact David Suzuki on that matter. David Suzuki, hopefully some of you trust him. So he's Canada's trusted geneticist and environmental expert. He does not think gene splicing technology is safe as it's currently practiced. He's authorized these quotes for public awareness. He says, all such experiments should be done under carefully monitored lab conditions, not out in the environment. I'm a geneticist, and I know some of these experiments will provide fundamental insights. I'm just against the rush to apply these techniques. He says, what bothers me is we have governments that are supposed to be looking out for our health, for the safety of our environment, and they're acting like cheerleaders for this technology, which is in its infancy, and we have no idea what the technology is going to do. He continues, anyone who says we know it's perfectly safe, I say is unbelievably stupid or deliberately lying. The experiments haven't been done, and now we have become the guinea pigs. So how do you feel about your children being guinea pigs, or yourself being a guinea pig? David says, I'm not in favor of release of GMOs in the food stream, and given that it's too late, I favor complete labeling of GMO products. I agree. We should have these items labeled. So what can we do? What do you do to protect yourself? Well, for one, you avoid those 5 food crops: corn, canola, soy, sugar beet, and cottonseed oil. Just read your labels. There haven't been any whole foods on the market until just recently. Monsanto has released a sweet-eating corn. All the other corn, for example, and soy was made to be put into processed things like crackers and cookies and mixes and whatnot, boxed food. But now they've come out with a sweet-eating corn, and it's been sold in Eastern Canada at farmers markets, and no one's being told it's GMO. A lot of companies here have opted out, but Walmart continues to say they will be selling GMO. So that's another occasion we have to make a demonstration. Recently, we've had Occupy movements all over the world. So I urge you to join your own Occupy movement, because you may need hopefully you don't need a lawyer too often or a priest too often, but you need a farmer 3 times a day as far as I know. So the best thing you can do to support the fight against GMOs is to occupy your fork. Pay attention to what you put on your fork. Don't buy ingredients that are GMO. Ask at the store, demand labeling, come to rallies, make your presence known. Because like I said, this is not our food supply. This is going to be here for the rest of eternity, for the rest of human history. This is our watch. We're the people who are aware. So we have to do our darndest to educate our fellow people, educate ourselves, and to take action. I invite you to come to my rally. Like I said, within 6 weeks' time, there's a sign-up sheet at the booth over there. If you leave your email address, you'll be told when we'll be having it. And we will have CHBC confirmed coming, as well as other media. It should be quite a show because I have quite a lot of props and entertainers coming there as well. For the time being, I'll take a question and answer period. There's two, one in Kelowna and one in Penticton. I have a website as well. It's truefoodfoundation.org, truefoodfoundation.org. I don't expect you to remember a lot of what I said, but anything I say is already there on the writings I've made on the website. Kevin?
Can you tell us a little bit more about the corn? Apparently there's a BT toxin.
Yeah, well, there's another thing that's interesting that you should bring up. Recently, the pesticide industry has been promoting pesticides as being entirely safe, and also the powers that be are saying that, you know, organic food is no better than conventional food. Well, that's just nonsense. But in the case of pesticides, the pesticide manufacturers saying that, well, hey, we use pesticides, but so do those organic people. They use BT as well. Well, BT is a naturally occurring bacterium, but when organic farmers use it, they use it sparingly when there's an infestation. It can also be washed off, it biodegrades in the sunlight, and it's not often used, and it's not that strong. In contrast, this GMO corn here, which produces BT in every single cell, that amounts to 1,000 times more concentration of BT per unit. So there's no way, and you can't wash it off, it doesn't biodegrade. So for them to compare that the two are the same, again, is just one more bunch of nonsense. But going into some animal studies that have been done, in Europe, they did some studies on hamsters, for example, and after 3 generations, the hamsters were unable to breed, and some were actually growing hair in their mouths. That brings a whole new level to a bad hair day. Imagine going to the barber in the future, just a little off the top, please. Yeah, it's old, but anyway. There's also a lot of problems with fertility, like the animals that are allowed to graze on the stubble after the crop has been harvested, there's stubble left and animals can go graze there. Well, a lot of, for example, in India again, their water buffaloes are dying and their sheep are dying, and they're also unable to reproduce. And pigs feeding on this and fed soy are actually giving birth to bags of water instead of piglets. I mean, there's so many red flags that you have to be a fool or completely in denial to say that there aren't problems with GMO. Did you have a question over here?
Oh, same question of when your rallies were.
Okay. So how many of you might consider coming out to a rally? Well, that's good. That's good. The last rally we had about 400 people. So this time I'm hoping to break that mark, but since we're splitting to 2 cities, I want to double it. Yes?
Where is Monsanto's? Where do they, are they American? Or are they...
Monsanto Corp is an American corporation, which again doesn't make any sense because it's not even a Canadian company. If there was tons of money for Canada somewhere along the line, I would understand better. It doesn't even create that many jobs, only about 400 or 500 jobs. So it doesn't make any sense. And I haven't talked about the genetically modified apples, so if you don't mind, I'll just talk about that for a second. You heard about the EnviroPig? Well, fortunately, the EnviroPig is no longer. The EnviroPig was a pig that they sliced in genes from mice and E. coli in order that the mouse would excrete differently. It would poop differently, in other words. So they weren't going to label it and they weren't going to put it on the market, but because of a lot of demonstrations and a lot of protests, that is completely being shelved. There's no more research money going into Guelph University, which is a wonderful thing. But we've got a few other issues. The biggest one is salmon. Have you heard about the genetically modified salmon? You have? And the rest of you know? How many haven't heard about the salmon? Most of you. Okay, well, let's talk about salmon. These salmon have been modified using a gene from an eel-like creature called an ocean pout, and also genes from other salmon. And this is a new super salmon, and the difference is that it creates steroid hormones 24/7. So a normal salmon would only make hormones for about 3 months of the year. This salmon makes hormones 24/7 permanently, which means it grows at the speed of light because it can't stop eating. That makes it really fast to get to market. This isn't even going to be produced in Canada. They're going to make the eggs here, ship them over to Panama, grow the fish there, and then send the finished product back here unlabeled. So just say salmon. Won't say GM salmon, unlabeled. So if I were you, I would be eating wild salmon only. The problem is that they guarantee us that these salmon are sterile. I want to see who has that job of ensuring that thousands of fish are sterile. And they say, oh, well, they're not actually all sterile. About 10% won't be sterile. Well, tell you what, one of those gets into the ocean by some chance, it's going to out-eat, out-compete, and crossbreed with our regular salmon, and that will be the end of salmon. So basically, GMOs creates extinction of natural species, whether it be animal or food, or plants, I mean. If it could be that I could eat my organic or my conventional and those people could eat their GMOs, I wouldn't have a problem. But the problem is GMO becomes everything. And case in point, there is no such thing as organic or conventional canola in Canada any longer, except in tiny little pockets. So eventually everything becomes GMO once it's released into the environment. And same with the animals. So these are the animals and the plants we're talking about now. But it goes further than that. They're actually experimenting with human genes. They're taking genes from humans and putting them into the embryos of sheep and goats in New Zealand in the hopes of creating a fertility treatment for humans. Well, the resulting offspring are dying of ruptured ovaries. Well, yeah, that's because human genes belong in humans, plant genes belong in plants, and animals belong in the respective animal. Don't you agree? Yes. Okay, well, it seems so bloody obvious to us. So crossing this species barrier is indeed, an incredible accomplishment. The problem is they don't have any idea what they're doing. For example, when they put these genes in there, it's not like cut and paste on the computer. It is not. They can select the gene out with some sort of accuracy, but inserting it into the new genome is random. So let's just say the new genome is A to Z, the human genome A to Z. Okay, so they're going to take this gene, they're going to put it into the new genome. Well, they have no idea when they fire it in there where it goes. They have no control of where it lands. And they have no idea or control of how it's going to affect the genes around it. And where it lands, it landed somewhere. Everything didn't slide over. It landed and obliterated or damaged or changed the functioning of that gene. And that gene makes other genes respond. So we've changed not only added a new gene, we've changed the functioning of the entire genome in ways that we have no understanding of whatsoever. So to me, that's an alarming thing, because if there becomes allergies or whatnot, right now labeling would provide us a way of tracking that. So if a mother gave her baby genetically modified soy and the baby had an allergy and it was labeled, the mother might be able to associate the two, or the doctor might associate the two. But without labeling, we have no idea how many infants out there are suffering from allergies or gastrointestinal problems or whatnot. And over the last 15 years, I don't know if you've noticed how much sicker people have got. I mean, between cancers and digestive problems and everything else, I truly believe in part this is because of GMO. So in your own best interest, if nothing else you take away, pay attention for your own health and safety to avoid those products, and do act up in any which way that you can. Any further questions? No? Well, then yeah.
Just a comment, the salmon in Atlantic Canada, that's where they're doing the genetically
Yes.
modified fish. They have been accidentally
Yeah, accidentally.
released into the waters already. So there's literally thousands of salmon, genetically modified salmon in Atlantic Canada now. So you probably want to get your Pacific salmon instead of.
That's a good point. Pacific salmon instead. Yeah. Concerns?
I have one question. Is there any movement for people that aren't using genetically modified ingredients to label it non-GMO since the other side won't do it?
There is in the States, and it's coming here too. It's a verified non-GMO. You just look at on the label, verified non-GMO. That is more prevalent in the States, but it's coming here as well. But better that they actually label the GMOs, that people have the right to know. And that's why they don't want it labeled, because they know that when people who don't even know their food's been modified, when they start Googling and realizing what's going on, they will avoid this product, which is what happened in Europe. It didn't come from the top down. It wasn't legislated into being. What happened was after that senior scientist saw his test results was creating, precancerous lesions and organ damage and whatnot, he went to they told him to shut up and put up, and he said no way, he couldn't with good conscience do that. It was his testing. He knew what the results were. So instead, he went to the press. And you know how it was with BP here, with the oil spill, that you couldn't turn on the TV, the radio, the television, Google. It was all over like that about GMOs in Europe. So everybody got a heads up all at one time, and the consumers stopped buying it en masse, just like that. And that's what we need here. We only need 15% of consumers to change their eating supplies and to hassle their food stores. And I can guarantee you that the food stores themselves will bend over backward to source out non-GMO products. And that is how it's going to happen. Thank you.
Are there any legal organizations bringing a lawsuit against Monsanto's for the damage that they're doing?
In the States, there's some lawyers who actually have, what's their website called? Food safety.org, Center for Food Safety, that's what it is. And it's two lawyers, and they actually fight Monsanto, all the way, every single decision that comes down, they fight it with volunteer donations. And in Canada, there's not so much. It's basically just been Monsanto, Percy Schmeiser who's fought Monsanto. Because, it's very intimidating when a multinational corporation like Monsanto comes calling and it's like you against Monsanto. Speaking of which, Percy Schmeiser, the Germans came to Canada to film a documentary about this whole situation, because apparently Canadians didn't care enough to make their own. Germans came here, filmed the documentary, and it's a wonderful documentary. The problem is you can't get it in North America. There's no video store that can even order it. Not even privately, forget it having it on the shelf. Well, Percy Schmeiser happened to personally give me a copy, and although I can't sell them legally, if you buy for example, and I sell everything at cost, if you buy a book or a t-shirt, you will get the DVD and a bumper sticker for free. So basically, it's a wonderful opportunity for you to support me and educate yourself and have something to share with people. The t-shirts are 100% cotton. I'll show them to you at the booth in a minute. Organic cotton. It is actually organic cotton. Thank you for noticing. Feels great too. There was one more thing I was going to tell you, and I can't think now what it is. Ask another question. No more questions? Well,